Hello and welcome back to Doc for our best season yet. In this season, we have testimonials, amazing guests, our health expert, and our favorite host, Franck and Dr. Today, we're talking about vaccines recommended for young people and adults. Young people and adults also need vaccines to maintain immunity and prevent them from getting certain diseases. Unfortunately, many think that vaccination ends at 5 years old. Before we go to set, let's hear from a young woman whose family is facing tetanus.
My name is Olagunluwaseun. I'm 21 years old. I stay in Atonta, Ogun State, and it's very far from this side. The reason why we have been in Lagos State is family, and the sickness is very hard. It's called tetanus. I can describe it because my younger sister is here right now. The sickness is very terrible. That is why we cannot be admitted in Ogun State. They refer us to here in Lagos State. My sister is admitted with the tetanus issue, and none of us is vaccinated in our family. In our family, we did not take the vaccination treatment as important something. So the challenges is very much because we have been referring from one hospital to another before they admit us here in Lagos State. And I've been facing a lot because I'm the only one staying with her. I'm facing a lot. I don't think she's improving. She's just gradually, a little bit. Because they have been attending to her with the tetanus vaccination. They have been giving her the proper vaccination here in Lagos State. She's 7 years old. She has been on admission since, 9 days ago, because she has been spasming since 10 days ago. But now the thing have already stopped. Just that she cannot open her eyes, she cannot eat, she cannot do anything. She's just lying down.
How do we grow healthy into adulthood? Frank, over to you and your guests.
Thank you very much, Leah, and you're welcome, everybody, back to Doc, Season 3. And as usual, we have an amazing topic to discuss in the studio today. And I'm not alone, we have our ever ready, ever supportive Doc in the house. Welcome, Dr. Anire.
Thank you, Frank.
Yes.
Happy to be here today.
Always
as usual.
glad to have you here. And Dr. Anire Chima is a public health physician, and she's always been with us on this show, giving us medical insights to our discussions. And not just the two of us are here, we have another very special guest with us here. We have Janet GBAM. Yes. You're welcome, Janet.
Thank you, Frank. It's good to be here.
Great, and Janet is a lawyer, a human rights lawyer. I know you also focus on digital rights, right?
Oh, yes.
Great. I mean, you both saw that video. Pretty sad. I mean, such a young child experiencing that kind of pain. Doc, how do we begin to even approach this issue? I mean, she's down with tetanus, and what are the options? What could she have done differently?
There are several vaccines that are available for adolescents and young adults that can prevent such diseases. It's very important we're having this conversation because a lot of emphasis tends to be on the 5 vaccination, children less than 5 years old. But there are also infectious diseases that can be quite deadly in adolescents and young adults. And if we don't focus on them, we tend to lose the gains we've made during childhood, where we were able to improve child survival. Okay, so things like diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, there still needs to be booster doses of those vaccines for adolescents and young people. There are also there are also some diseases that young people can also get and are more fatal in them. Things like cerebrospinal meningitis, things like hepatitis B, of course, the popular COVID we all know about. Okay, so these are some of the vaccines that young people should take. However, in Nigeria, there really is no immunization program for adolescents and young people, which we have to change. There needs to be. So even if people want to vaccinate themselves, they're not really aware because there's no program, unlike the under fives where everybody knows, okay, you need to immunize your baby. So we need to start having this conversation on how about our young children, our young adults, what should they take?
Good. I mean, on this show, we've discussed on previous episodes about vaccination or immunization for babies right from birth, and what mothers should. This episode, we are focusing on vaccination for young adults, teenagers, adolescents. What predisposes that category of people to diseases that can become life-threatening like this? I mean, what kind of activities? We know for babies now. I mean, all this one of you have a baby, kiss the baby. Now, no, doctors are advising against that. Don't go and greet somebody and be kissing their baby. You know, babies can be exposed to infection from adults and the environment. But adolescents, what kind of activity can open them up to these diseases?
Okay, so we they are different. The fact that the thing is, there are some diseases that affect people irrespective of your age. So you might not even do anything, but you are young adolescents are more are more susceptible because the vaccines they took when they were children is beginning to wane at this age. So they have a tendency to be more susceptible to these diseases, especially the ones that are spread by the respiratory tract. So they might not necessarily have to do anything. If you stay in a disease endemic zone like cerebrospinal meningitis, there's a I talked about that in previous episodes. There's a meningitic belt. So just staying in that environment predisposes you without you doing anything. Hepatitis B is another vaccine preventable disease. You can get that from sexual intercourse, blood, anything that has to do with exchange of blood. So let's say people are delving into drugs using injections, it could predispose you. Then we also have the very popular new one, the new introduction to our routine immunization schedule, the human papilloma virus vaccine, which was introduced as part of the routine immunization last year for young girls 9 to 14 years, HPV vaccine.
Last year?
Was officially, so it was made, it has been available for a while, for years, but it was expensive. But it was made accessible and available to everybody. Not everybody. Yes, it is free.
Okay.
Girls 9 to 14 years, which protects against cervical cancer. So coming back to your question, what can predispose you? Cervical cancer, okay, HPV is the most common sexually transmitted infection. More than gonorrhea, more than HIV, is very easily transmissible. So sometimes you don't even actually have to have sex, the act, for you to have it. Just playing around the vaginal area, the genital area, can predispose people to having the infection. And it leads to cervical cancer, which is a major killer of women in Africa. In developed countries, they've been able to reduce cervical cancer to the barest minimum because of things like vaccination and early testing. But here, cervical cancer is still killing our women in droves.
I don't think that information is very widespread. Janet, have you ever heard of such HPV vaccination?
I think the HPV vaccine, I am not so sure that I really heard about it before. But I think it just goes to show so much more that we need to know, especially about our health, and the importance that such information is also made available for people. I mean, I also believe that now being on this episode and getting this information, it's also on me to ensure that people in my circle also have this information, and it's something that is very relevant. So if you see when the doc was speaking, I was like, okay.
But have you heard of cervical cancer?
Oh yes, I've actually heard of cervical cancer, especially because I've actually had my mom also. My mom died of cancer. So for me, being able to hear that there was something that if maybe this vaccine was readily available, she would have gotten it and maybe prevented some of it. And then also seeing now that it's mostly for teenagers, and I'm like, I'm out of the teenage years, so what happens to
I was
me?
going to ask,
Which exactly?
Does she benefit from that?
So it's more, the vaccine is more effective when given before sex commences. That's why they're targeting it to 9 to 14 years old. However, people up to I think 26 years old can still get the vaccine. Okay. However, it's more effective when there's no prior exposure to the virus. So we say the virus is very common. So it's so common. Most times, most people are already infected with the virus. It's just that, yes, it's that common. It's wide, very prevalent. However, the immune system to some extent is able to clear it off in some people. But you don't know if you are part of those people.
So we're here. What else can a woman do? I mean, that is not a woman who is not between the ages of 7 and 14, like you said, right?
9 to 14
9
years.
to 14. So what can women do?
So if you already passed that age, we now advise you to go for screening, cervical cancer screening, which you can do via a pap smear, or you can go for HPV testing, but a pap smear is more common. However, vaccination is more cost effective and it's cheaper than the screening test.
I mean, thank you very much for that contribution. We'll come back and discuss a bit more about some of the challenges you are facing when it comes to getting people to take up this vaccination. But Leah has something for us, Leah. Let's hear you.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add that it's really important to stress the fact, I think Doctor mentioned it, that about 80,000 women die of cervical cancer in sub-Saharan Africa every single year. It is one of the highest killers of our women on this continent, and it accounts for 22% of all female cancers in Africa. It is one of the major killers. It is a preventable disease. We're all afraid of cancer, but here is one cancer that is actually preventable, which is not the case for all of them.
And
thank you very much, Leah. I mean, Doc, just like the statistics we just saw, 80,000 women, 22% thereabout of cases, of cancer cases. What are the challenges that sometimes you face? Are people adopting, are they taking up this option?
No, and that's why it's so surprising, because HPV vaccine is one of the vaccines that have faced a lot of criticism and backlashes since it was introduced, even from seemingly educated people. And there's a lot of myths and misconceptions that I heard. Some people say they want to make our children more promiscuous. They want to do this, which doesn't make, I would say it doesn't make sense. I understand your opinion. Everybody's entitled. But when you think in life, we always weigh risks and benefits and risks. And the vaccine is not, we're not saying go and have sex. We are saying be protected, because a person could be a virgin and get married and meet somebody that's met just one person and he got the disease from that person and transmits it to. So you need to protect yourself. And I just also want to stress that, like what Leah said, you hardly find vaccines that can prevent against cancer. Cancer kills people, and now we say there's something that can prevent cancer. We are supposed to be jumping at this discovery and welcoming it. Just HPV vaccine and hepatitis B vaccine can protect against cervical cancer and liver cancer. So we need to adopt it. It's so important.
Just before we go ahead, because I know sometimes I always like to dig beyond the surface, and because culture, beliefs, the norms, religious connotation. Sometimes some of these things affect the way people receive information. When you were talking about people thinking that the vaccine is supposed to make their daughters more promiscuous, could it be that what you're trying to explain is they think because if they get the vaccine and they know that, okay, I can't catch HPV, now they will be less careful about their sexual activity. So what they are trying to say probably is that the fear of catching the disease will keep people chaste or keep them cautious. So now that if you not get it, you now throw caution to the air. Is that what they are saying?
I don't know what they are saying, and I don't understand what it's. I don't know what they are saying. No, but I'm very surprised at the conspiracy theories against the vaccine. And it's not just about the vaccine being the sexual promiscuity thing. I've heard all sorts. How safe is it? How effective is it? There's something, all sorts. However, I just want to stress that before a vaccine is approved for use, there have been many years of testing. It's not just, there have been a rigorous scientific process that have gone into it. There's phase 1 testing, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, which takes a long time. And there's testing in other people, human subjects, before we come out and say, use this vaccine. Okay. And talking about risks, there is nothing in this world that is 100% risk-free. Let's go there.
Even driving a car sometimes. Yeah.
Everything is, but you weigh the risks and the benefits. And in people, how many people came down with this side effect you're scared of? Most times is minimal, very minimal, not enough to discredit the whole science.
And we've seen the tetanus situation where that young lady said they didn't take vaccination seriously.
Yeah, they don't take it
so
seriously.
Apparently that lady was not vaccinated against tetanus and she didn't get treatment on time. But now we're talking about HPV as a focal point for now. We still go to other diseases. But Janet, as a woman, and as a citizen of Nigeria, a citizen of the world, when you talk to women, how does it feel when I'm trying to also get behind the scene and maybe pick your brain a bit. How does it feel when people, what are the feelings or the notions, the nuances that can make somebody get suspicious of these things? Maybe if you discuss some of this, then we can educate each other better.
I think there's always that element of control in everything. Our environment, culture, religion, just the social settings that we're in. There's always that, control, someone trying to control the narrative. And I think for me, I usually attribute that to a lot of fear and also the lack of information on exactly what processes are supposed to be laid down. Because if I have a vaccine that will prevent any kind of illness, I will go for that. And we could see it in the case of the COVID vaccine and all the theories that came about with the COVID vaccine about, and there's always a theory and a conspiracy against everything. When 5G was to be introduced, we heard about, 5G was, coming to introduce some alien things to us. So there's always that element. But I think these kinds of conversations need to be had more, especially within women's spaces and women's circles, so that people get to understand that there are aspects. And now that I realize that for me, the screening may be better for me, I would also understand that I have nieces, I have younger people who I mentor, I have young people who I interact with. I would make sure that I pass this information to them to ensure that the mistakes that I was able to make, not due to my fault, but for the lack of information and the access thereof to this information, I would make sure that they get better information and are able to protect themselves and make better informed decisions about their health than I did.
Thank you very much. Because I was also thinking that, in women's spaces or interactions, amongst women, like, things like, we discussed things like cost, access to such vaccines. Would that have been a hindrance in a way? Have you?
Yeah, I think we cannot. We're in Africa, we're in Nigeria. Let's say we're in Nigeria. We can never take out the importance of cost. But I also know that when it comes to things like general, and please, Doc, you can correct me because you're in this space, but working in the non-profit space, I know that there are people who have taken it upon themselves to ensure that some of these vaccines and, things that are life-threatening are made readily available to people. So I think it's usually the lack of access to this information on where to get access to some of these services that will save people's lives. That is the major problem. So the need to now take out this information and make it widely accessible in the languages that people understand and can connect with, and know that there is help here and this service is readily available and provided for free. And you can come and, you can get this service free of charge. It's very important.
I'd like to come in here. There might be an element of cost when it comes to vaccines for adolescents and young adults. I know that presently there's government funding for under 5 vaccines, but I cannot say the same for adolescents and young people. So there's not much emphasis, even from the top, from the federal level, on such vaccines. It's only when people that have access to such vaccines are people who the parents are very educated, or they want to study abroad, and that's part of the requirements. They tell them, you need to have this vaccine. Have you been vaccinated for this, that? And then they go and have it. But generally, the information on vaccines being available and necessary for young adults, adolescents, is not readily available. We don't see it as important, and that needs to change. And also, if somebody, I know in my center, hepatitis B, I think they give it to students, medical students, routinely when you want to start clinicals. That's because they are going to be at higher risk. But it shouldn't just be for health workers. It should be for all young people. Things like rubella, which is something every young girl of child reproductive age should take. HPV, of course, that one we've publicized it. Meningitis, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus doses, booster doses. Nobody's talking about that. Tetanus, you need at least 5 doses to be immune all your life. Children just get 3 when they're under 5, so there needs to be booster doses. So generally, the information is not out there. That's one. So parents do not even know. Young people do not even know that there are vaccines they need to take. Emphasis is placed too much on under 5. Then number 2, I'm not sure that there's enough funding for vaccines for young. Yes, I'm not sure. So you might walk into I got hepatitis B vaccine for free like 15 years ago. I went to ask for it and they gave me for free. But there are other vaccines. Like if you say you want to take meningitis, meningococcal, they'll ask you to pay. Like sickle cell disease patient. I had a patient, she had sickle cell disease. There are some vaccines that are necessary for sickle cell disease patients, irrespective, like meningococcal vaccine, pneumococcal. She went to go and take it. It's free for under 5s, but for her, she said she couldn't afford it. So there was...
She couldn't afford it?
The price they told her. Oh, wow. Vaccines are not cheap.
What's the range for these vaccines? What do you think?
Okay, so I don't deal with pricing, but some could say 10,000, 15,000. Before they made rotavirus free, rotavirus for children, it was 10,000 for a dose, and you needed 2 doses or 3 doses. Before they made HPV, human papillomavirus vaccine free, some centers were selling it for giving it for 20,000 for a dose, and you need 2 doses, 20, 25, depending on the center you go. So it's not. Wow. When you think about that,
let me check out what Leah has for us there. Yeah. Leah?
Yes, Leah really wants to contribute to this discussion. This is really fascinating. I think there are 2 points to take into consideration. One, demand drives also what is made available to people. And this type of talk show, this type of conversation is also to make sure that not only parents know, but also young people know and are starting to demand more and more of the availability of these vaccines that will ensure that they're made available, but also that the prices go down for everybody. So that would be the first point. The second point is actually related to the fact that we're looking at vaccine as insurance. In our country and across Africa, healthcare is very expensive and healthcare is not necessarily accessible. So the cost of healthcare is such a high burden on families and of people that vaccine provides you with the insurance to not have to deal with those costs later. Because unfortunately, not many people are insured. Not many people have access to free healthcare across a range of diseases. And specifically, for HPV as well as for hepatitis B, those costs of cancer patients are really, really high. So for parents to think about, and young people and young adults, this is actually a safety mechanism, knowing what is possible to happen in the future. We pray and we hope it doesn't happen, but it's insurance now to not have to deal not only with the consequences of the disease, but with the cost of the healthcare that is likely to happen in the future.
Thank you very much, Leah. That was a brilliant contribution. And one other thing that came to my mind just before Leah, spoke with us is that collaborative effort. Now, we live in a society where we all influence one another. Men influence women, women influence men, relationships and families. I also think, what role do you think men can play when it comes to this? I know if some relationships or families, the head of the home or the man says, you know what, darling, I think you should do this because it's going to be important. Or you want to get married. And maybe religious institutions or schools or families demand that. Have you gotten your stuff? Maybe that kind of information can help us. So what role do you think other members of the society can play to help make this more visible?
Educational institutions should make it a requirement. Yes, you should not. Okay, should recommend it. No, you said what roles can they play? Educational institutions.
Yeah.
So I gave an example earlier on that young people typically, or adolescents that have taken some of these vaccines that adolescents should take, recommended by the World Health Organizations, are those adolescents that want to school abroad. And the school abroad has said, recommends it. Have you done this? Have you done that? And they'll go do it because they want to go to school. So even in Nigeria, there should be a partnership between healthcare and education. There is supposed to be via the school health program, although it's not even as functional as it should be. But schools should take an active role. I know a school, I'm not going to say which, that explicitly wrote when they were trying to give the HPV vaccine to children, to people in the age group 9 to 14 years. A school wrote that the government has said they're coming to give HPV vaccine. However, as a school, we advise that you do not give it to your children. We cannot vouch for the safety of the vaccine. Sorry, but how can, and a very good school, very good school, how can you say that and then send consent letter? If you want us to give it to your children, sign. It's harder. People like to stay in the face. It's easier to say, if you want us to not give it to your children, sign, than to say, if you want us to give it. So it made it harder.
But for me, I think that it's very important to get consent, because consent really matters.
Consent is important, but not saying if you give consent. The consent was, there's opt-in and opt-out. So opt-in is, yes. If you want us to give it to your children, sign. It's easier to opt out. I don't know.
It's like me saying,
consent
take
from
your
both sides should be taken
form.
either way.
Sign this form that I'm allowed to snap a picture.
Yeah.
Instantly, you get defensive.
No.
You want to go and send my picture?
No, not really. I think just privacy issues. It brings in
Okay.
privacy issues. For privacy, it's
And
just
litigation.
important to get. It's just important to get someone's consent before doing.
No
such
problem. But
things,
before you
irrespective
ask
of
for the
what.
consent, you say, we do not recommend that you should give your children this vaccine.
All right.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
also wanted
Leah
to-
cannot stay away from this conversation. This is too interesting. And I think Doctor just touched on what I wanted to say just now, which is when you start the conversation with saying, we do not recommend, there are two problems with that.
Yes.
One is you actually undermining the research, the thinking, the planning, and the best interest of the government and the Ministry of Health to your children. Yeah. That's the first problem. But then the second problem to that is, who are you as a school to talk about the safety of the vaccine? It's not of your volition. It is not your role. You're not doctors and you're not medical professionals. So one thing would have been, make sure parents inform yourselves about the vaccine. And if you choose not to have your child vaccinated, please opt out of it, rather than we do not recommend that you do.
So
and then please, which makes a parent actually sometimes feel worry and concerned and embarrassed to say, I still want it, when the school had told me I should not want it.
Exactly. That was the issue.
And to be honest with you, I have seen many cases where mothers declined HPV vaccination for their daughters for a variety of reasons. But then I believe our women are more, equipped to converse on that. So we're going to say.
No, I was just also going back to the question you asked about the collaboration from, and you mentioned the school, which is a great point, but I also understand that not a lot of people are fortunate enough to go through a structured institution who will provide, that level of privilege, I would say privilege. So it's also quite important to interact at the family level first, of course, but also at the community level. And if there is something living in Africa and interacting in communities, I know the weight that the community leaders have in issues like this. So it's also important that engagements just go beyond, institutional level. I mean, the government can do the big work of, setting up policies and getting the Ministry of Health and whatnot involved, but it's also important to engage the communities who are at the, receiving end and at the grassroots level to really understand that, because they are experiencing this. These are lived realities of people on a daily basis, and some of them have had to deal with these cases with very limited knowledge. So engaging them could also be a means to really bring people more who understand and have a way, and also that level of impact. And I'm looking for a word to say, when the community has this level of
There's a
among the
question I want
citizens.
doctors to answer, but before then, I want your own idea or contribution on something. Because I always like to get to the root cause of things. So, what do you think the issue leans more towards when it comes to HPV vaccination for young ladies? Is it more of it costs? Is it a decision of safety, or it will cause infertility? What do you think may be the fear there, so that doctor can help us dispel that? Which one is more of the concern?
I think for me, it could be more of ignorance. That's what I would say. Yes, because like Leah already said, there are people who have done extensive research and trials to, bring this product to where it is. And you just maybe seeking to discredit it could really just be from maybe beliefs, and sometimes it could even be religious or social, and even just within the environment. But I think most of it is ignorance, and the only way to really counter that is, having constructive dialogue. And I know this sounds very cliche, but it's important to really engage people sincerely and hear the viewpoints and understand where everybody is coming from, and find ways to really, align these thoughts, to ensure, and also use evidence. Very important to use evidence-based research to, bring out, to say, okay, show me cases of people who have, gotten this vaccine and now are infertile or unable to, I will show you the people who have gotten this vaccine and are protected and their immune system is stronger.
Yeah,
Can I say something? I've had plenty conversations with people on the other side. I even have doctors. When you that have been swayed, say I don't think it's safe. Yeah, I'm not going to give my child. Doctors, what? Not because they read any research, but because there's someone they respect has that view. They tend to follow. We tend to follow. And even no matter what I've found, I may be wrong, is no matter the evidence you give them, they will go and look for where they put the side effects. They might be, and show you. It's hard to convince people who have made up their mind
have a bias
against something, especially when they're educated. There's nothing in the world you want to tell them. They will tell you, it's like this. They'll bring. It says there's seizures, there's encephalitis, there's this. In how many people? How? That's why I say you weigh the risk, and how out of 800,000 people that have taken this vaccine, how many people came down with encephalitis in this paracetamol that everybody takes? If you know the side effects that come with paracetamol, liver damage is one of them.
That was a thing too. We didn't know on time.
Liver, but we all take paracetamol.
Oh yeah, a lot of
because
people abuse that painkillers.
Yeah, we not abuse, but we take it. If they stress on the side effects, the way people are stressing on the side effects of HPV vaccine, nobody should even taste them paracetamol. But we take it, and nothing happens to you, nothing happens to us. So people that are biased with whatever reason, most times it's religious, most times it's their hatred of vaccines, most times they just have this suspicion.
Yeah.
So they are never swayed, even if you have constructive. I've tried to have constructive conversation. They'll bring the side effects, because there's no every drug you have to say what side effects are. But how many people does it occur in? 1 in 100,000 or 1 in 1 million. It's not enough to negate the effects, the potential benefits of such a thing. But they'll keep telling you, see this, see that, see this.
Suspicion,
and they will not.
Suspicion.
Yeah, people, they will not.
But then again, you had a very strong point there. The alternative is not pretty. You said I'm sorry about your mom. Anybody who has handled anybody who's had a bout with cancer, whether they survive or not, knows it's a very nasty thing to do. It's a very problematic situation. And so, I mean, if you also have, then again, I like the way you put it, Janet, about having a constructive conversation and knowing where they're coming from. And also, we have a doctor in the house who can also hear them. I mean, I know it might be difficult. I know you're
trying. You can never, you can't, we keep trying.
This is why conversations need to keep going on.
You need to keep
and
going.
To enlighten each other. You listen to their concerns. The ones you can show them evidence.
Repetition is also important. The more that's why this conversation can never be too much. Repetition. The first time you hear something, and that's why the advertisement industry, they use repetition in a lot. So the first time you might, second, third, until it becomes part and parcel of you in your consciousness. So we need to have consistent, repetitive conversations on these issues.
I wanted to play an advocate, but I don't think I should play.
What kind of advocate?
Because you said something that was also very interesting. You said sometimes you need to listen to their reasons, and they give you, it can cause this, Because I'm thinking, is there any basis, for such fears? I mean, for example, this is what I'm trying to say. If somebody says, okay, I'm afraid of putting this in my body because they said it might, and maybe they've seen one or two people where it has happened. And if you admit that or say, yes, it is written there for a reason, it's because it's my body, that the tendency or the probability is so low, but the alternative is more dangerous. Those are the conversations. So I think, do you think if medical experts listen more to people's fears instead of just try to tell them you're imagining things, do you think that will happen?
Oh, yes.
You've said yes like 4 times.
I'm serious because I know, especially in Nigeria, where medical practitioners disregard what the patient is saying. Like, I have had to scold a doctor so many times, when maybe my sister, and I know even when my mom was in the hospital sometimes, and they're like, don't bring your Google research here. But I'm like, for God's sakes, not being just a lawyer, I am a very educated person who has also had to utilize tools at my disposal to find information. The least you can do is listen, not just disregard everything. And so I think with all that, it just brings more sophistication to the process.
We can do more listening. We can, as doctors, I agree, we can improve our communication skills. Even research has shown that doctors that get sued, litigation, most times when you check it, the communication with the patient was very minimal, or the patient felt being brushed off, that you didn't listen to me. You had this complex, this God complex, or, I'm going to, and then they want to do it because I want to deal with you. I want to show you that. So yes, we can do better with our communication. We can do better with listening. And you can't, if you want to convince another person, really, you must first hear what they have to say.
Thank you.
So it's when they speak, it's kind of removing that thing from their mind. So there's space for them to listen to what you have to tell them. So yeah, we can do better with that.
I'm happy we've come to.
I know, like
we can do
I'm
better.
happy everybody feels like a burden has been lifted off our chest.
We can
Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you so much, Dr. Anire. And thank you for watching. If you're watching from home, and this has been a very interesting conversation. I'm happy we're able to open our minds and come to a resolution that collaboration is indeed necessary for for people to understand the importance of vaccination programs that are available and for young adults and adolescents, especially get things like tetanus, diphtheria, rubella, and HPV, hepatitis B. I'm not a doctor here, but I just caught some things. I mean, people can access information. You can talk to your health experts. You can, it's recommended you go talk to your health experts.
And one more thing, this one is not just for the people. I think a recommendation I'll make is that our government needs to take adolescents and young adult vaccination important. There needs to be a designated program for young adults and adolescents.
For their health. Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure having you here, Doctor. And you guys, you know how to do this. And there was so much information coming at the same time. But I know I want to talk to Leah. Leah, what's up? Talk to me.
Yes, I am really excited that you guys spend so much time talking about communication, which is key in everything that we do. Whoever needs to be part of the conversation has to be brought in. Unfortunately, as we're trying to make sure people are aware and having constructive conversations, there are some, especially on social media, hiding behind screens that are spreading information that has no basis and that is also fueling the conversation. There are things we cannot ignore, but unless we look at them straight on and talk about what role they play in communication about vaccines, we won't be able to dispel those myths. So I want to take you to this particular tweet, or should I say X statement that was made on social media, and come back to you to see if it's something that you would cry or laugh about. So a post on social media says, and talking about the HPV vaccine, that cervical cancer accounts for about 26% of all female cancers in Nigeria. Introducing the HPV vaccine for girls aged 9 to 14 years is a stride towards changing the statistics. Remember, these vaccines are free, safe, and effective. And this post was also a way to ask if it was a myth or a fact. A myth, the HPV vaccine is dangerous and unsafe, or fact, the HPV vaccine has undergone rigorous testing and scrutiny before being approved for use. It has been certified by the WHO and approved by NAFDAC. Underneath this post that is clearly talking about the rigorous testing and introduction of HPV in Nigeria, somebody says, as there ever been a scientific proof that vaccine works? Is there any proof to us? Please educate us. And some very supposedly trial enlightened person comes under this and says very boldly, they are not safe. My daughter is now infertile. She also has brain inflammation as seen on MRI. They are dangerous and many girls will suffer. So, on set, is this something to laugh about or to cry about?
All right, thank you very much, Leah. You heard it, ladies. It's that information and what followed. Something to laugh about or cry about. Let's have your reaction with the emoji in your hand.
I think it's actually. I'll laugh about it.
Okay, why? Let's start from.
No, I think I'm laughing about it because why it is funny, but it's also quite scary. Especially social media has provided a platform where people just come out and say whatever is on their mind, and sometimes people just take this. And if you see, so I think one of the person even has like a nurse something in her name, and then someone else would go and quote, "I saw it from a nurse. She said this vaccine, this is what it does." So I think that's also why education is important, to counter these narratives. So imagine at that post, there was someone who brought like statistics to say, this is what I've done. I think maybe it would have directed the conversation to another way. But most times when people see these things and keep quiet, and that's why I'm really excited we're talking about it, so that when people see, they will understand that content online should not just be taken the way it is. You must also do your investigations to find that whatever I'm consuming online is indeed true or factual.
I know. I've been worked in the digital space, digital rights space. I know you're very conversant with the legal framework of, and all these things about fact-checking and all that. Doc.
Okay, so I'm gonna laugh about this because from the post, it sounds like something doctored. When I mean doctored, it's my daughter is now infertile and she has brain inflammation. Many girls will suffer. It is not safe. It sounds like a narrative somebody is trying to push. Your daughter is now infertile. How do you know she's infertile? Did she try to have children? Like, is very critically analyzing it tells me that it looks like somebody with an agenda that is putting something she wants to be the public to absorb, not what is really, because there was no evidence, MRI really. How old is your daughter? So if I was a discerning, I hope what a parent should do is analyze that statement more and ask questions. Really, your daughter is infertile. How old is she? How do you know she's infertile? If she tries to have children, probe it. Question the statement. Don't accept it hook, line, and sinker. I'm laughing and I've laughed.
I mean, I said it's something to cry about because when it comes to women's health, I think it's very important and it can be dangerous when you put out information.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, even correct information might be dangerous.
Absolutely.
Hear me out, sir. Ma. Doctor, because I know in medicine, you say this constantly to us. Sometimes medical treatment is not a one-size-fits-all. Just because your neighbor took a painkiller for her head doesn't mean the next time you have a headache, you should take it too. You don't know what caused that person's own, and that's why it's dangerous. So just because, okay, when this person was sick, she took. Do you still have that thing remaining that you took the last time that the doctor gave you? Let me take it too. Symptoms might present similar, but the cost of this might be different,
Yes.
And that's why sometimes I think it's very, no matter how much we claim to know and we can Google, but we are still not doctors. So, and not everybody that has doctor or nurse on their name on social media.
Just academic.
Somebody's academic doctor. Sometimes I've even noticed that the real medical experts sometimes don't put nurse something on their name. They don't put, doctor. Sometimes they just put is it MBBS, or sometimes they put some other thing, just say maybe a neurosurgeon. They may not put it in the name of the Twitter handle. So sometimes just going by.
In Nigeria.
And you also need, even if the person is a doctor, you must also critically analyze what the person has said. But even if I'm a doctor, I may make a mistake. Yes. I'm not infallible because I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse. I'm not infallible. So analyze what I've said. Is it in line with what other doctors are saying? Because there are some doctors that are against HPV vaccine, real doctors, for whatever reason. So analyze. Don't take any statement hook, line, and sinker. Verify, confirm. Two or three more: WHO, NCDC, Nigerian Center for Disease Control. And
I think that's why this conversation is so important, because we are all on the same side fighting the same enemy, common enemy here, which is ill health. And that's why sometimes it baffles me. I don't see the real need for all this bile and division and anger and bitterness, because at the end of the day, you should be able to express yourself, express your fears and concerns, and the scientists also express the confidence level they have in the medication. And science, usually they will tell you confidence in research. They will tell you the degree of confidence or, accuracy of something. And at the end of the day, we can all both come to a resolution and say, okay, look, we're all trying to fight the same enemy. So far, this is the result we have. We think it might cost this for some people, but the benefits outweigh the other side if you don't get it. And I think that's where this conversation is very important. And if both of us, whatever side of the divide you're on, whether you're suspicious or you're in the team that is educating people, when we all come together and we have conversations, you tell me your fears, I tell you my concerns. There's some things that you're not taking it might affect me directly. We're both dialogue, and then we can find a solution to all these concerns. And that's where I think this direction should go.
I think also something that I forgot to mention earlier is the cultural aspect of, to all of this. Culture for Africa is very important. I mean, in Nigeria, we're in a very multicultural environment where the culture takes the center of a lot of people before anything else. So it's also important to engage with some of these, cultural ideologies and challenge them. And that's why for me, I believe research is so important. It's only through research that you can, prove or debunk some of these things. So it's really important to also engage in those issues.
Not surprised you're an academic. You love research.
So I just wanted to contribute to what she said. Yes. I surpass what she said totally. And but I just want to add that rather than challenge them, engage them. Because when you challenge, they would not. It's always a challenge.
I mean, challenge could be that it could. When you challenge something, the outcome could either be positive or negative. Yeah. It's not like you're really trying to. Please forgive me for trying to engage in semantics. Language.
Yes, engaging the culture. So engaging them means trying to understand it and swaying it, working with the culture to get at the aim. But when you challenge it, most times they'll just say no. Okay, you want to fight our culture? Okay, we'll show you. We've been doing this for years.
Good. Yeah, thank you so much, and I think for coming on the show, Janet. Thank you, Doctor. This will be a good opportunity to also engage our audience out there. Seek information and get involved, collaborate, and ask questions. It's always good to ask questions and to make sure you're not the wrong side of things. And also let's engage Leah. Leah.
This has been amazing. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Leah. Thank you, Doctor. Okay. Thank you, Janet. Yeah. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. How we do it. This is Back to Doc. Stay with us. Catch us on another episode.